I'd like to share with you a story about a past client. We will call them Jamie. Jamie came to us to revive their power. Their girlfriend of nearly 20 years broke up with them, and they had been broken up for over a year. And while Jamie didn't want her back, they couldn't get over her. They tried to go on dates, but they would end up sitting there mentally comparing whoever this other girl was to their ex-girlfriend. There are, of course, humans, women, men like Jamie. It doesn't matter what your gender is. Jamie couldn't do anything except for the bare minimum. Before the breakup, they would participate in like hiking and reading and other hobbies. They would write in their journal sometimes. However, the breakup with their ex-girlfriend caused deep triggering core wounds, also known as disempowering beliefs, to be severely activated as a result of the breakup. You see, the behavior that we exhibit on a day-to-day basis is a symptom. Our behavior, all of our behaviors are really symptoms of our subconscious programming. So when we have a breakup occur, it activates our disempowering beliefs. It also is a severing of getting our needs met in this relationship because our partner is the one who's going to be meeting our needs. So our personality needs are not getting met. Our subconscious has gone into overdrive to protect us because we feel threatened. All these disempowering beliefs, all these core wounds activate our nervous system to the point of fight or flight in some way because we feel like we are literally being threatened from the outside. These disempowering beliefs started in childhood, and then they just got solidified because we have told our RAS, our reticular activation system in our brains, which is helping us survive, helping us look for the things that we need. We've told our RAS over and over again, especially in a case like Jamie, that we're going to be all alone or that we feel rejected. There are these beliefs from childhood that get activated in a breakup, and our bodies go into fight or flight. Our needs are not getting met because that person is breaking up with us, and it is a really hard time. Heartbreak is a trauma, but it's not the first one. The first traumas began when we were children, whether that's big T trauma like many of us in our queer community have experienced, or just little T trauma of being told that we're stupid or to shut up or to go away, that we're annoying because we had older brothers and sisters. And then, of course, some of us have had sexual trauma like I have had, and we end up with these really disempowering beliefs, core wounds, you can call them, because there's underlying trauma. There's adverse childhood experiences. These occurrences are, of course, decades old, but they persist and they show up as unhealthy attachment that began, again, in childhood to our primary caregivers. We create trauma bonds and then look for someone later on in life who can act very similar to our primary caregivers, who we can reenact that attachment with. The beautiful thing is we get to look lovingly, gently, and safely at our patterns. And we can do that with the magic of meditation. We can look so lovingly, so gently, and keep ourselves safe so that we can reprogram that itty bitty shitty committee, which is really just our child self inside. It's really an itty bitty kitty committee. We get to reprogram from the inside out. When we're triggered, whether it's during conflict or during a difficult time in our lives, our subconscious mind goes into autopilot. Our subconscious keeps us safe. It allows us to not have to figure out things again, like how to carefully turn a key in a lock or how to walk and talk. And so because our mind is incredibly supple, there's a lot of neuroplasticity that's available in the brain right from when we're born. Because it's very supple, we are taking in everything just like a sponge, as you've heard, that kids are like sponges. Yes, they're soaking everything up so that they can store it in their subconscious so that they don't have to think about how to balance to walk and how to move their tongue to talk and how to do complex things with their bodies or intrinsic fine motor skills, right? Kids are learning all these wonderful things that help them later on in life. And fortunately or unfortunately, when hard things happen and when we feel like we've been marginalized within our own family, like we've been told that our needs don't matter, these form those disempowering beliefs that we carry with us, just like the ability to know how to move our tongue, to make certain sounds, the ability to take a tray out of a stove, right? All these really seemingly simple things that we do have to teach a child to do with patience. And maybe somebody wasn't so patient with us when we were kids. Maybe they said really disempowering things to us that are simply not true. The same beliefs that they had. That's why they call it generational trauma, because we just pass on. You can't give away something that you don't have, right? So fortunately or unfortunately, our subconscious stores these memories. And of course, the subconscious helps us to perform actions from the past that were successful. So if we have a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms, unhealthy habits during times of extreme unrest, mentally, physically, emotionally, especially during heartbreak, we're going to feel re-triggered. And like these traumatic events are happening right now, and that we need to believe these really disempowering things about ourselves, which are simply not true. In childhood, our brain was very supple. We were in theta brainwaves most of the time, even deeper delta brainwaves from the ages of 0 to 2, which is why babies sleep a lot. And delta is a very deep level of sleep. Theta is a level of sleep, and it's also deep hypnosis. So from 2 to 7, we are really taking in everything as fact. We believe that our primary caregivers have the best interest for us in mind, even if maybe they are actually selfish people who don't know how to raise children. Or maybe they do know how to raise children, but they made some mistakes, as all humans do. When we're kids, we idealize our parents and think that they know everything. So then when we're heartbroken one day, we begin to rely on these outdated models of reality to lash out at people like we were lashed out at, because we're afraid, because we're angry, because we're sad. So these heartbreak situations remind us of traumatic events in childhood. And when we were kids, we didn't have the capacity to understand that our parents were just flawed humans. In childhood, we literally do not have a prefrontal cortex. Humans develop a prefrontal cortex starting around the age of 8, and it doesn't finish until you're 25 years old. So as children, without the use of a prefrontal cortex, which is where we do a lot of processing. They sometimes call it the brain's CEO. This is why when we have a tension headache, we've been thinking all day long, this area of the brain can get a little sore, right? Well, we develop strategies in childhood without the use of the prefrontal cortex that live in the limbic brain, that live in our entire bodies, that are like muscle memory. And these vibrations, these emotional vibrations, these sensations that are connected to these events actually live in the body. So whenever something difficult happens, you'll probably notice that the body reacts. Certain areas of the body actually talk to you, which is why we do the folding within process. And we've learned strategies in childhood to get through those situations, maybe through people pleasing. It usually results in some sort of unhealthy relationship attachment, anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, or that combination, anxious and avoidant. It just depends on the person that you're with as to which side you lean toward. So maybe you've had similar experiences and can think back to, you know what? It is like I married my dad twice, even though one was a man and one was a woman. And that's my case. I married somebody who was very much like my father 2 different times. And we look for this safety, because even though it may not have actually been safe, it may have actually been quite a dangerous situation for you to be in. Even though that might be the case, we did survive. And that's all the subconscious mind knows, is that we survived. We should use this same tray of coping mechanisms. We should say this pile of data that we have inside of our head to ourselves about it. And all those things were given to us. We developed them as a result of our very finite experience. Of course, all of us have trauma in different ways. And twin sisters or twin brothers can be in the same exact trauma and come away with 2 different sets of coping mechanisms and 2 different sets of disempowering beliefs that we call core wounds, right? So in response to all the chaos that we endured during childhood, the traumas, maybe we actually had an incredibly anxious parent or an incredibly avoidant parent, or maybe one that was verbally or even physically abusive. And that's not right. It's not right for our little child selves to be carrying that anymore. We can choose to not carry it and to let it go. We are capable of so much more than we can imagine. If we can just realize and leverage the 2 facts that, one, our subconscious mind during heartbreak, anxiety, depression, our subconscious mind is trying to get its needs met. Unfortunately, sometimes that tends to be through painful patterns instead of healthy, empowering strategies. Basically, our disempowering core beliefs are working against us. So if a couple has different attachment states, it's like they have their set of data on one side and their partner has a different set of data on the other side. And because of this different data, it's like we're sitting down in front of a board that has black squares and red squares. It looks like a checkerboard, right? But one person has the rules for chess and the other person has the rules for checkers. And we don't understand why we can't communicate. It's because of our subconscious programming. And our subconscious programming that we were given, and this just becomes our data set for life. Our subconscious is really running the show. So our conscious mind can bark an order just like the captain of a ship can bark an order. But unless the crew is actually on board, they can mutinize. He can call an order, and the rest of the crew just might say, you know what, we're not going to do that. That's kind of how it works when your subconscious is really in control. But once we can understand it, that's when we can begin to rewrite it. And to say, I am not going to let this child, this poor little scared child, run my life anymore. I'm going to love them, her or him, whatever your pronouns are. I am going to nurture this precious baby and listen to their stories. But I'm not going to let the subconscious of a child who didn't have a prefrontal cortex decide. The adults are here and we're in charge.